We don't want to waste time, but it's an incredibly busy day around the country. Various court cases underway. Let's head off to our first one this morning, which is going to be where all eyes are going to be focused on from 9 o'clock this morning. It's going to be with our senior reporter, Slindelo, Masikane, over to Slee at the moment outside the Bloemfontein High Court this morning. Hello to you, Slee. Let's find out then what's expected. An hour from now, we do know that Dr. Magudumana is expected back this morning facing various charges. Remind our viewers what charges she is facing. Also, not going to be alone, is she?
Others, including her father, Zolile Sekeleni, who, of course, appeared last week, Monday, where he, alongside a former G4S employee, the supervisor, on the night in which Bester escaped from prison, they were charged with defeating the ends of justice as well as murder and fraud. And we know that after Dr. Nandipha was then deported from Tanzania, she appeared on the very same day last week, Thursday, where she was charged with defeating the ends of justice, fraud, and violation of a corpse. She then appeared alongside a CCTV technician who on the night, we understand, was the one responsible for switching off the cameras. We're about an hour away from court proceedings resuming here in Bloemfontein, but that doesn't mean that we will start at 9 a.m. exactly. We do understand that Dr. Nandipha is being held in a prison in Kroonstad, and that is about 200 k's from Bloemfontein. So it might take some time to have her transported this side, but our colleague Moloto is monitoring that situation at the moment. Right now, we do have media who are actually trying to secure their spots inside court before proceedings begin. But not only that, we also have a very heavy police presence inside as well as outside the Bloemfontein court precinct. In fact, to my right, Tebogo will show you that across the street, we have a number of traffic officials, correctional services officials, as well as SAPS officials who have come out to secure the courthouse precinct ahead of these court proceedings. But while we bring you these visuals outside court, I want to bring in a legal expert, Mr. Marius Dutoy, who's just going to give us a sense as to what we can expect from court proceedings this morning. Thank you so much for your time, Marius. Maybe if you can just take our viewers through the possibility of the accused who are in the dock today attempting to get bail and the likelihood of them actually being granted bail, because we are expecting, of course, that the state would want to oppose it.
For having me, Slee, you're absolutely right that when a bail application is considered, there's a number of things that the court will look at. The court will firstly look at the gravity of the offence. Now, we know the offence for which all of them are being charged is aiding and abetting a person to escape from lawful custody. So we understand that just by looking at the offence itself, it's an offence that carries a 10-year sentence, direct imprisonment, so it's a very serious offence. It's a type of offence that has embarrassed the country nationally when you talk about the Department of Corrections, Department of Justice. So you can understand that the state will do everything in their power to keep them inside. Now, just in respect of Dr. Nandi, we have to say that she's a person that, number one, traveled abroad with Thabo Bester himself. She was in possession of passports. So I'm quite sure that each accused's matter will be considered on its own merits. They will consider the gravity of the involvement of each party with that. And then they will consider the issue of bail. So I'm quite sure when it comes to Dr. Nandi, that the chances of her getting bail is going to be quite slim. The state will do everything in their power to say, well, bail should not be granted. Now, when the court looks at bail, Slee, the court looks at various considerations in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, Section 60, brackets 4A to E. And one of these considerations is if there's a likelihood that if the person is released on bail, he will evade justice. Now, that's exactly what Dr. Nandi helped Thabo Bester do. So you can only expect that that ground will be gravely considered by the court. It will be something that the state will ventilate to the best of their ability to ensure that this factor is placed before the court so that she cannot be given bail, because there's a serious risk that she will evade justice, and she will do everything in her power. Just look at the fact that they involved not only their father, but they involved prison authorities, prison employees. So you can understand what they are able to do. And they've got the means, of course, to do that, because we understand that they're financially in a position to do so. So, Slee, from a perspective of the gravity of the charges, the consideration, I expect the state to do everything in their power to have bail refuted. Having said that, in this instance, it would seem to me that it's not a Schedule 5 or 6 bail application, it will be Schedule 1, which means that the state has everything to do. The state would have to show grounds why bail is being opposed here, but I'm quite sure the state would be able to surmount that hurdle by adducing the necessary evidence to show the risk if these people are granted bail.
Mr. Du Toit, let's talk about turning state witness and what that would do for the accused in this matter. Would that aid them in terms of perhaps lessening their sentences or absolving them altogether of the charges that they're facing?
Okay, so firstly, if we consider a person turning state witness, we have to understand that if the state wants that person to do so, not in all cases do you require that. If you've got a watertight case against all the accused, you might be reluctant to even consider them as a state witness. So typically you would consider using somebody as a state witness if that person can really add value and make your case so much stronger. I'm quite sure in respect of Dr. Nandi, they might be reluctant to do that. Having said that, if any person turns state witness, of course they can enter into a plea deal. Not only can they enter into a plea deal in terms of Section 105 capital A of the Criminal Procedure Act, which means that they will negotiate the sentence for that person. But similarly, that person can also testify in the criminal proceedings against the other people. And that would be typically in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, also Section 204. That's when you talk about an accomplice witness testifying against the others. That could have a direct impact on the sentence that she or he gets themselves if they plead guilty. But also it would go a long way in assisting the state. But once again, I reiterate, the state would only really be interested in using a person as a state witness if they really need that person. It's typically in a case where you have an accomplice testifying against the involvement of everybody else in the matter, where you have a case that's perhaps not that strong. Then that would go a long way in assisting the state. But where you have a watertight case, why would you bother to use them as state witnesses? They must really be witnesses that can assist you in securing and procuring a conviction against everybody else.
Lastly then, Mr. Du Toit, can we expect even more arrests in this matter from your perspective at looking at who else may have been involved? Because there's a lot of speculation around the fact that it seems the little guys, quote unquote, are being arrested here, and we're not seeing high-ranking officials who possibly also played a part in the escape.
Well, you raise a very good point. And if one considers the previous question that you asked, Silly, whether somebody would turn state witness, if somebody was able to offer information to the state to say, well, listen, this is much deeper than what we believe it does, and there are many more people involved, if we can give you names A, B, C, D, and E, then of course the state would be very inclined to consider using such a person. And that would go a long way in assisting in prosecution against the others. And I believe that's something that could help going forward for the state. Then we might see other people being charged. Because ultimately, because of the embarrassment that it's caused the Department of Corrections, I'm quite sure they would want everybody prosecuted.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. That is legal expert Marius Du Toit giving us some analysis in terms of the expectations that we can see in court processes unfolding this morning. I do still see that media is still trying to secure their spots inside the courthouse. We are told there's limited room. However, of course, like I said, Gareth, court proceedings are expected to start at around 9 a.m. or just after after 9 a.m. this morning, of course, depending on whether all the accused will be at court by that time. And of course, the expectation there is that today would be the first time that Dr. Nandipha lays her eyes on her father in the dock today, all of them accused of aiding and abetting Thabo Bester on the 3rd of May 2022.
Certainly going to be a fascinating day in court as well. Lots of media interest, lots of interest from around the country as well. Senior reporter Slindelo, Masikane, thank you very much outside the courtroom for us. But as we heard from Slee earlier, Dr. Magudumana is not there just as yet, or at least I haven't seen her, because she has been held at some 200 kilometers away from Bloemfontein in Kroonstad. That's where we go over to senior reporter Moloto, who's watching that for us this morning as well. Hello to you, Moloko. Any idea if the doctor has left the facility on her way to Bloemfontein, or are we not able to sight her?
Good morning, Gareth. Well, at this point in time, really, there's no indication that she has left this facility, the Bizamakate Correctional Services Center in the small town of Kroonstad, 200 kilometers south of Bloemfontein. We know that she is in here because I was told that this is the only facility, at least outside Bloemfontein, that can be able to house the female inmates. And some of the people that I've been able to talk to, particularly those who work in this facility, as we arrived here yesterday, they did indicate that indeed she is in this particular facility. But as for her having left the facility yet, we are not sure about that. But a short while ago, we saw a police van from Botshabelo police station, which is a township in Bloemfontein, going inside this particular prison. We don't know whether it has come to fetch her or not, but what we know is that security is very tight. I mean, we are seeing men that are armed with automatic rifles who are manning the main entrance going into the premises of this particular prison facility. And they don't want anyone who's unauthorized going inside there. At this point in time, really, we are just hoping that any moment from now, she will emerge, or the convoy that would be transporting her would emerge from this prison facility, taking her to Bloemfontein to make that second appearance.
Watch at the moment for the 9 o'clock expected appearance, around 200-300 kilometers away from where you are in Kroonstad, expected up in Bloemfontein. But you'll keep an eye on things for us there. Moloto on transport watch, if you will, prisoner transport watch. Nothing, it seems, to indicate that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana has left the facility. But as we're hearing from Slindelo Masikane, court is expected to get underway at 9 o'clock this morning.